Okay, I'm going to jump straight in here with this posterior view. Incredible view for highlighting a lot of characteristics in the golf swing. In this video, I'm going to cover the 6 main keys that can really highlight great visuals. We've got Tiger Woods here on the left, Justin Rose on the right, and we'll have a look at a couple more players as well as we have a look through this. So number 1 is going to be what we can assess at setup, and that's going to be your hip tilt and your spine tilt. So for both of these players, what you're going to notice is very roughly their left hip is going to sit slightly higher than their right hip, or their lead hip is going to sit slightly higher than their trail hip at setup. Their spine angle, if I draw a straight line down through the center of their pelvis, you're going to see the base of their neck. If I draw another line from the base of their neck down to the center of their pelvis, you're going to see a slight tilt away from the target between the center of their pelvis and the center of their chest. So this positioning at setup really sets up the axis in which they're going to rotate around throughout the backswing. This spine tilt, you're also going to see it. They're going to maintain that dynamically throughout the backswing. So as they make the backswing, you're going to see that kind of center of the pelvis, center of the chest, that angle, that slight tilt away from the target is going to remain throughout the backswing. I'll take Justin Rose up to the top here as well. So they set these angles at setup, then they pivot around those points. Another great observation here is in the takeaway. So as the player goes into the takeaway, you're going to see great separation between their torso and their pelvis. You're going to see that the torso will have rotated more as they get into the takeaway than the pelvis. So this is separation between the upper and lower half that's happening in the backswing. If you think the torso, the shoulders, the rib cage is going to rotate roughly through 90 degrees and the hips through 45. So we have to create separation in the backswing where the club starts, the hands start, and then the shoulders, and then the hips will then follow that motion. So that creates a lovely separation between the upper half and the lower body. And that good sequencing in the backswing is what has that knock-on effect to create a good sequence then through transition and in through the downswing. The next piece then is going to be the center of the pelvis. So just where those green circles are, you're going to notice the center of the pelvis. Now, this can change from player to player, but typically you'll see here with Tiger, he has a small bump away from the target to start his backswing, just until the club just starts to move, and then he'll stabilize that trail side. Rose is quite similar. You'll see as he just starts his backswing, just until the club just gets outside his trail leg, there's a small shift away from the target. Some players have this, some players don't. But the key here that we're going to highlight, you're going to notice the center of the pelvis where the green circle is. As they get to the top of the backswing, or as they move to the top of the backswing, you're going to notice the center of the pelvis is moving in this direction towards the target. And that's a really big piece that we can have a look to make sure that our pivot is working correctly. So as they get up to the top of the swing, up to position 4 here, if I was to draw another circle where the center of their pelvis is now, you'll see that it will have moved slightly towards the target. So that's a really big indicator in the backswing to see, are we loading into our backswing well? Are we giving our upper body a good chance to wind up efficiently in the backswing and give us the least amount of work to do to get our weight and our pressure forward in the downswing? The next then would be the relationship between the arms and the pivot of the body. So we're going to take both players up to the top of their backswing, and we're going to look where their trail elbow is in relation to their body. So if you're a player that maybe loses width in the backswing or gets too narrow, what you're going to see with your trail elbow is you'll see the trail elbow much more across the body. It will have moved more this way. And when the trail elbow moves across the body behind the player, from this angle would be the depth of the trail elbow. If it's too deep across the body this way, it's a good sign that we're not maintaining our width. That could be due to being under rotated. It could be a number of reasons. But if that trail elbow works too far behind the player, it's going to be difficult to get the arms back out underneath us at the moment of impact. So when you view your swing from this posterior view angle, you can take a note where that trail elbow is sitting. So you see both of these players, that trail elbow sitting outside their trail leg. So if we were getting too deep with that trail elbow, it would be moving more towards the target. And if we were maybe not deep enough, the trail elbow would be sitting more over here on the spectrum. So a really good indicator to see, are we maintaining enough width? You'll also see a good indicator as well how much trail elbow or trail arm bend we have at the backswing too. So we don't want this trail elbow being over flexed. So you'll see it again very roughly about 90 degrees here in the backswing with the trail elbow. Again, this can vary a little bit, but typically if that trail arm starts to bend too much, there will be more difficult things we have to line up throughout the downswing. So arm structure, width and trail elbow depth is another really good point from this posterior view. The last point we're going to touch on then, and something that is very true for all really great ball strikers, is the lateral motion of the lower half in the downswing. So we get up to the top, we see that the center of pelvis is already worked towards the target slightly. But through downswing, the center of the pelvis is going to move more towards the target. So the pressure is moving on to that lead foot, moving towards the target. Typically anywhere between 4 and even more inches, the lower body will work towards the target. You'll see the same here with Justin Rose. So if we draw a line where their lead hip is now, we go back to setup, you'll see a gap between where their lead side is starting versus where it travels to coming into impact. So there's quite a big shift laterally towards the target. As they're doing that, this is where that upper half and lower body separation is so key, because as their pelvis moves towards the target, you're going to see their upper center of their chest will remain behind where the center of their pelvis is. Really, really important piece of the puzzle there. We never want the upper body getting out in front of the pelvis. So they would be the sort of 6 to 7 big checkpoints that we can study from this posterior view angle of the golf swing. We'll just take a look at a couple more examples here. So we've got, this is Charles Howell on the right, Zach Johnson on the left. Zach Johnson, really big drawer of the ball. So you're going to see very similar hip tilt, spine tilted setup. You're going to see the center of the pelvis work in a very similar way. And you're going to see a little bit of a stronger angle from Zach Johnson in terms of his spine tilt away from the target, as he's very more draw biased player. You're going to see a lot of width and not as much depth with that trail elbow in the backswing. Charles Hell, very similar. He's actually got a towel under his arms here. He might be working on something got to do with his arm structure. But again, very similar in terms of the direction. You're going to see his pelvis travel, or the center of his pelvis travel in the backswing. So very similar characteristics there for another two players. And then what analysis would it be without having a look at the Grand Slam winner, Rory McIlroy, here on the right? So hitting an iron, again, very similar spine tilt. You're going to see he's got a little bit of that pressure bump just until the club gets outside the trail foot there. Then the pelvis will stabilize and the center pelvis will start to work more towards the target, as we saw in previous players. Up to the top, maintaining, rotating around that lovely spine angle, and then a very big shift towards the left. You'll see his center of his pelvis gets out in front of the center of his chest, coming into impact, lining things up really nicely. So hope this video helps. There's a lot of characteristics in there. Not all of them will apply to you, but if any of these sound familiar, there's something you're working on, use this camera angle. It's going to be really, really helpful in creating the right visuals and potentially uncovering a new focus to improve upon.